The Spider-Man Brand New Day trailer is officially here, and wow, Peter is going through a lot in Spider-Man Brand New Day. Right away, I would love to know what you personally thought of the trailer. I did a poll when we were live, and 93% of the people who are watching said that this is peak Spider-Man, but let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Now, there is so much to break down in this trailer, from Spider-Man going through a metamorphosis and getting organic webbing. Also, he's living across the hall from MJ and Ned, and MJ has a boyfriend. We also have to talk about Sadie Sink's character, who really seems to have psychic abilities, further pointing to her playing Jean Grey, and how this movie is actually going to really set up the future of the X-Men in the MCU. And of course, we have to talk about Bruce Banner and the villains of this movie, from Tombstone to Scorpion to the Hand to possibly Kingpin being the one who's really in charge. A lot to break down in this video. If you love Marvel and Spider-Man, be sure to subscribe and hit that notification so you don't miss out on any of the latest Spider-Man and Marvel news. Without further ado, let's get into the trailer breakdown. Now, there is so much that we have to go over for this trailer. Many different characters, many different scenes, many things happening to Peter Parker, but we'll start at the beginning. And when I say the beginning, we actually have to go all the way back to Spider-Man No Way Home at the end, where Doctor Strange did the spell to make everybody forget who Peter Parker was. So nobody knows who he is, except for possibly two characters in this trailer. But MJ, Ned, Doctor Strange himself, and the whole population of New York City and the world does not know that Peter Parker is Spider-Man. They have no idea who Peter Parker is, but remember, they remember Spider-Man. This is a really important thing to remember, because MJ and Ned, they do remember Spider-Man, they just don't remember any of their time with Peter. At the end of Spider-Man No Way Home, Peter was going to go into the diner and tell MJ everything and try to get her to remember, but he ultimately decided not to do that because it would be a lot safer for her, because she wouldn't be put in danger because of him being Spider-Man. He just lost Aunt May. In Spider-Man Brand New Day, he lost Tony Stark. He doesn't want to lose anybody else that he loves, so he decides to protect her by not telling her. But the repercussions of that come into play in the beginning of this trailer. We see Spider-Man sitting down, but he's actually hanging upside down, looking at his phone, looking at an Instagram reel that Ned is doing. And this Instagram reel is quite important because Ned says, "I can't believe it's our first day at MIT." The reason that this is important is because we know that Spider-Man Brand New Day takes place in 2028, 4 years after No Way Home. But the beginning of this film will take place in 2024, specifically this scene right here. It is confirmed that there is going to be a time jump in Spider-Man Brand New Day. And since MJ and Ned seemingly move right across the hall from Peter, they have went to MIT, did their 4 years, and graduated. It's now 4 years later. Peter has been Spider-Man for a very long time now, but Peter has been suffering not having MJ and Ned, so much that from what we've heard about the film, he is going to put Peter Parker aside, and he's just going to focus on being the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. This is a big theme of Spider-Man Brand New Day that is going to really affect him in this movie, but we'll get to that in just a bit. Now, when watching the Instagram reel, it really affects him. One, because obviously he misses his friends and his girlfriend, but Ned says, "Try to act like this isn't the happiest day of your life," and MJ says, "I can't," meaning it is the happiest day of her life, and he's not there. So it hits him. She is fine without me. Now, he's being really hard on himself because she doesn't actually remember him, but still it hits him pretty hard. Plus, he wishes he was there at MIT, kind of living a normal life, but that's why he decides to put Peter Parker aside and focus on being Spider-Man, because he doesn't have a normal life. But you can see by the look on his face when she says it's the happiest she's ever been, he's really upset, almost looking mad actually. So instead of focusing on that, instead of focusing on the Peter Parker side, he puts on his Spider-Man mask and he jumps. We get a fantastic look at his new suit before he jumps. I love the raised webbing a lot. I think it looks awesome. The red and the blue look great. And when he's falling, notice that actually some of his suit is kind of ruffling in the wind. It's not skin tight. And I actually really like this detail. As he jumps down to the streets of Manhattan, we can actually hear sirens and such in the background. This is his Spidey sense picking these things up, but then it cuts to inside his mask, which is a great POV shot. And we hear him breathing very heavily. He's clearly upset, so what he's going to do is go focus on being Spider-Man. Now, one thing to keep in mind while watching this trailer is to look at Peter's wrists. Notice he has his web shooters on in some of the scenes, but in another scene where he sort of pops out of a spider cocoon, he has organic webbing, just like Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man. And I hope he actually says something or mentions Peter 2, who is Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man from Spider-Man No Way Home, because they made the whole gag about him having organic webbing. But he goes through a metamorphosis in this and gets organic webbing. So looking at his wrist throughout the trailer will tell you if it's from the first half of the movie or the second half. If he has the web shooters on, that's the first half of the movie. If he doesn't and he's using organic webbing, that is the second part of the movie. So that's a good way to differentiate scenes. Now in this trailer, we hear narration from Peter Parker reading a note that he wanted to give to MJ. Originally, this was supposed to be New York, I love you, but you're bringing me down. Now that song played in the leaked teaser that we got for Spider-Man Brand New Day, but considering that it leaked everywhere, Sony went ahead and kind of redid it. But it was originally supposed to kind of reflect how Spider-Man was feeling. New York, I love you, but you're bringing me down. Again, tying into, I love you, I'm your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, I will protect you, but I'm actually pretty depressed right now. But instead, in this one, we have Spider-Man reading the letter that says, hey, you don't know me, I'm Peter Parker. You don't remember me, but we used to know each other. Something bad was going to happen, and the only way to stop it was to make everyone forget about me. Now, what he's referring to here are the events of Spider-Man No Way Home. We were basically having an incursion. Villains from other universes were splitting into our universe, and reality was breaking. They were only coming because of Peter Parker, so Doctor Strange made everybody forget who Peter Parker was. But he says he did this because he's not just Peter Parker, he's Spider-Man. Now, while he says this, it shows us several things. It shows us him in the diner where MJ used to work. Ned is walking in, so he probably knows her again, or this is kind of one of the same scenes from the end of Spider-Man No Way Home. It does show Ned and MJ watching TV, probably watching something related to Spider-Man. And again, remember, they remember who Spider-Man is, but there is a very important detail that Marvel did reveal about the ending of Spider-Man No Way Home. They released the script that had a few pages of the ending on it, and this script actually said that when Peter was talking to MJ at the end of No Way Home, she had a slight hint of deja vu. And I think this is going to come into play big time throughout the entire movie. She's going to meet Peter, and although she's not going to remember who she is, I do think she's going to have that hint of deja vu again. Basically a feeling of, I feel like I know this guy. Now, in one of the scenes at the end of the trailer, it shows us Peter actually meeting MJ. She says nice flowers, and he says their housewarming gift because her and Ned move in right across the hall from him. And if you look in the background, you can actually see a lot of photos of Spider-Man. Now, this scene is interesting because it could be one of two things. One, it could be Peter Parker's room, and those are pictures he took himself because Peter Parker, is actually working at the Daily Bugle, selling pictures of Spider-Man to earn money. A classic Peter Parker story, but it does kind of look like in this scene, they are in MJ and Ned's apartment. It's a party that MJ and Ned are having in their apartment, and most of the people behind MJ seem to be in the same apartment. So I believe this is actually Ned's room. Ned is actually the big Spider-Man fan, which makes sense because, again, he would remember that he has worked with Spider-Man before. So it's going to be kind of awkward for Peter when Ned is a super huge Spider-Man fan, but doesn't remember who Peter is. And there's also a really funny joke here because we have heard Peter say friendly neighborhood Spider-Man many times at this point. So when he says he's just a neighbor from across the hall, she says a friendly neighbor, and that kind of chokes him up, and it's actually really hilarious. Also, another thing that they show in the beginning of this when he is reading the letter out loud is that he receives the key to the city. This tells us that the city does not hate Spider-Man. In fact, they love him so much that they are giving him the key to the city. And notice that the mayor usually does this, and that is Sheila from Daredevil Born Again Season 1, not Kingpin. So this basically tells us that in Daredevil Born Again Season 2, Kingpin is going to be out as the mayor. And they show him holding the key, looking at it while he's sitting on the ground. And this is your classic success means nothing if you don't have anybody to share it with. Because one of the heavy themes of this trailer and the movie is that Peter Parker is alone, and he is intentionally putting his personal life as Peter Parker aside. And that leads to a really big change that Peter is undergoing. We go to the scene where Peter says, "What is happening to me?" He is very sweaty and he faints and he falls to the floor. This is Peter's body physically changing. And actually, when we see him next in the next scene, he wakes up in a spider web. It's actually more like a spider cocoon, showing that he has now gone through a metamorphosis. He wakes up not really knowing what has happened to him. He falls a little bit. Some of the web catches him, but he notices he doesn't have the web shooters on his hands. So he freaks out a little bit and the webbing breaks. But then he shoots webs organically. He no longer needs the web shooters because of the metamorphosis that his body has been through. And from what we know about the movie, the reason he goes through such a big change is really a lot of reasons, but one of the main reasons is he is severely neglecting Peter Parker and his mental health. That, combined with the stress of everything that is going on, causes his body to severely change. And although the organic web shooters seem like a really good thing, the change actually really affects his body in a very bad way. With some rumors even stating that by the end of the film, he might actually turn into a version of Man-Spider. And that could explain this scene that we have right here where his eyes turn black. This could be the spider side taking over him. I know a lot of people saw this and want to think that it's Venom, but I just do not think we're going to get Venom in that way in this movie. If we do get Venom in this film, I think that it's going to be kind of a hint at Venom, or maybe just see the symbiote locked up or caged up in some type of jar or container device. But I do not think this is Venom when his eyes go black here. I think it's either him kind of having the spider take over and becoming Man-Spider, or it's Sadie Sink's character controlling his mind. And we're going to get to her character in just a bit, and the Punisher as well. But first we have to talk about Bruce Banner. The Hulk is in the film. Now, we just saw Bruce Banner, but it is said that we are going to get a full Savage Hulk once again in this film. Savage Hulk is back. We've even heard we might get a Gray Hulk. I think both versions will most likely happen, but the reports say that we're supposed to see a Savage Hulk basically on par with Avengers Age of Ultron, how the Hulk was in that film. And some reports even say this is going to be the most savage version of the Hulk that we have seen in the MCU. Now, since Peter's body is changing, he goes and seeks the help from Bruce Banner, who seems to be a professor at a university. And this scene is very interesting because Peter walks up to him and says, "Excuse me, Dr. Banner," and you can see on his wrist is the device that controls Gamma that keeps him from turning into the Hulk. I imagine that this device is going to break at some point in time, or it's going to malfunction in some sort of way, which causes him to turn into the Rageful Hulk once again. But here's why this scene is incredibly interesting to me. Look at how Bruce Banner looks at Peter, and he goes, "What did you say your name was?" And he's smiling in a very peculiar way when he says this. I think that he might actually know who Peter Parker is. There has been a really popular theory going around online that the Hulk actually remembers who Peter Parker is, and that the spell did not affect him. And since the way Banner is right now is kind of fused with the Hulk, then Banner actually remembers who Peter Parker is. I think Peter might give him a fake name when he goes up to him originally, and that's why he asked, "What did you say your name was?" And then he might say something along the lines of, "Peter, I know who you are. I know you're Spider-Man." Now, this could happen, but it also might not happen. Just a theory. But the other option is he goes and seeks Bruce Banner because, of course, Bruce still should know who Spider-Man is, and he probably thinks that he could trust him. So I do think that ultimately he tells Bruce Banner who he is if he doesn't already know that he is Peter Parker and Peter Parker is Spider-Man. And he even tells him something very important in the trailer. If DNA is mutating, that's important, that would be enormously dangerous. And then right away after that, they show us Peter testing out his organic webbing. Now, I know some people think that he's webbed up the Hulk and the Hulk is fighting him, and that's why he's kind of struggling here. But in the next frame, you can actually see the webs sticking to the building across the building he's from. So what this scene right here is him testing out his new organic webbing, trying to get the hang of swinging with it because it probably feels pretty different than the synthetic web shooters that he used before. I mean, the webbing is now literally coming out of his body. So yeah, it's going to feel pretty different. So he's getting used to it, but he's also going to struggle with it and the changes that his body is going through throughout this entire movie. And that's why Bruce Banner told him it would be enormously dangerous, which is another hint at something else that is enormous and dangerous: the Hulk. Now, they're probably saving that for the last trailer, if not waiting for the movie to reveal it. But we of course know that he is going to Hulk out in this film. So the Hulk, specifically a very savage version of the Hulk, is returning, and Bruce Banner is also helping Peter going through the changes that his body is going through. Which brings us to the next narration, which says spiders have 3 life cycles. When in between cycles, it can leave the spider vulnerable to threats. And for those spiders who make it through, it amounts to a kind of rebirth. So basically, it's telling us that Peter Parker is in between cycles right now, but once he gets through it, he will essentially be reborn, better and stronger than ever. But to get through this cycle, he not only has to get through it physically, but mentally as well. And he eventually has to realize that he can't neglect Peter Parker. And that brings us to our next character and some incredibly important scenes. Sadie Sink's character. Now, you don't really see her face in this, but we know who she is. We know the scenes that she's in, and they are incredibly important, not just for Spider-Man Brand New Day, but for the future of the MCU as well. Now, just so you're aware, if you haven't heard, most of the insiders claim that she is playing Jean Grey. Yes, Jean Grey, the Phoenix from the X-Men, although she probably won't have the Phoenix Force in this, or if she does, they probably won't mention it, maybe hint at it. But many insiders have stated that she is playing Jean Grey. Others have hinted that she has psychic abilities, much like Jean Grey has. This is not confirmed, but based on what we see in this trailer, I would say that it's highly likely that she is indeed playing Jean Grey. And let me explain why we think that. Backing up a bit, there is a scene where we see a wall start to raise. It is in a big white room, and inside the room where the walls are raising, we can see somebody is chained down to a chair. She is handcuffed at her wrists and her ankles, and this is Sadie Sink. The very next scene actually shows a close-up of her wrists being shackled down to the chair and her trying to break out. I believe this is the work of Tremel Tillman's character, who is in this trailer, and the DODC, the Department of Damage Control. The Wonder Man series just came out, and the DODC played a big role in it. They showed us that the DODC was hunting down super-powered individuals and basically trying to lock them up so they're no longer a threat to society. But they also explained that they were looking for some who could be their allies. And one person they think could be their ally is Spider-Man, or at least that's what they'll make him believe, because we have this scene right here of Tremel Tillman talking to Spider-Man. And it's said, according to insider reports, that Tremel Tillman's character is the person in charge of the DODC. But more on that in just a bit. What you need to know is Tremel Tillman is most likely one of the villains of this movie. He tells Spider-Man, "We are faced with a danger that we can't control, one we can't even see." And what he is referring to is her psychic powers. She is affecting people, and they can't even see her do it because she's doing it from a distance with her mind. And that comes into play in the next scene that they show, where Spider-Man goes to the tank, takes the top off, and there is an older woman inside. Her head shakes all of a sudden, kind of like a demon is leaving her body, but really what it is Sadie Sink leaving her mind. Then it immediately goes into one of the soldiers behind Peter. She jumps into his mind. That person then smiles at Spider-Man, and really it's Sadie Sink's character Jean Grey smiling at Spider-Man, then goes into another soldier. And I say soldier, but they're probably with the DODC or there's some type of police force. We're unsure, that's why I simply say soldier. But then if you look back at the lady, she is holding her head like she has the biggest headache in the world, and that is because Jean Grey was in her mind. And that's why his character says we're faced with a danger that we can't control, one we can't even see. And another indicator that this is indeed Jean Grey that Sadie Sink is playing, the character that Tremel Tillman is reportedly playing is William Metzger, an anti-mutant radical and leader of a high-tech Department of Damage Control militia. Here's where things get kind of crazy. Tremel Tillman signed a multi-picture deal in the MCU for his character. So did Sadie Sink. It's already been confirmed that Sadie Sink is going to be in Avengers Secret Wars. This was confirmed by Deadline. Both Spider-Man and Sadie Sink's character are not set to appear in Avengers Doomsday, which means since Sadie Sink signed a 3-picture deal herself, the 3 movies that she is most likely in are of course Spider-Man Brand New Day, Avengers Secret Wars since that's been confirmed, and then an X-Men movie after Secret Wars. So the fact that we have William Metzger, an anti-mutant radical leader and a big player in the Department of Damage Control, talking about somebody using psychic abilities, combined with the shots of Sadie Sink's character being held prisoner by the DODC, also combined with an explosion of a building, which I believe is the DODC, and Frank, the Punisher, breaking Sadie Sink's character out. All of this points to Sadie Sink being Jean Grey, or at the very least, a mutant with psychic abilities, but I mean, come on, she's got the hair, it's probably Jean. It could be Hope Summers, the mutant messiah, but since we're going into a brand new soft rebooted MCU after Avengers Secret Wars and we're getting a new X-Men team from the ground up, I'm assuming she's Jean. So that is Sadie Sink in Spider-Man Brand New Day, and like I mentioned, it seems like the Punisher might be the one who breaks her out because we have heard reports that line up with this trailer that the DODC is actually torturing her because, again, they don't like mutants, and this is going to start the story for the X-Men against humanity. The government thinking that mutants are a danger and need to be controlled, and that's definitely going to come into play in the story of Professor X and Magneto. So Spider-Man Brand New Day is a huge setup for the future of the X-Men in the MCU, and the Department of Damage Control, they're going to play a big role in that as well. So it's said that they are torturing Sadie Sink in this film, which leads to the Punisher breaking her out, which actually leads to her and the Punisher wanting to take the DODC down because they are torturing and capturing other people. But this comes into conflict with Spider-Man. As most probably know, the Punisher and Spider-Man go about things in two very different ways. Spider-Man very much is a don't kill person, and he is optimistic and believes in the goodness in people. However, the Punisher is not quite that way and is more of a shoot first, ask questions later type of guy. Depending on the situation, he is very tactical when he needs to be. But he has zero problem killing people he believes are bad. Whereas Spider-Man does not want to kill people even if they are bad. And that's where we get one of the scenes with the Punisher and Spider-Man in this. One, it's just an incredible moment in MCU history, the Punisher and Spider-Man. It's also action-packed, I love it. And we see Spider-Man like Liu Kang kick the Punisher out of his van. We're probably gonna see a lot of really great hand-to-hand combat in this because the director is Destin Daniel Cretton, the director of Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, and plus Jackie Chan's team was responsible for a lot of the choreography and stunts in this movie, so you know it's gonna be really awesome. But the reason Spider-Man is getting rid of Frank in that scene early on, and again, notice the wrist, he has the mechanical web shooter, so it's early on in the movie. The reason he's trying to get rid of Frank is because Frank is going to kill people, and he does not want Frank to kill people, so he's trying to take him out, and that's why he even says, go home, Frank. He knows who he is, he knows what he's about, and he doesn't want people to die, so he takes the Punisher out in, you know, a friendly-ish way. Being kicked in the chest by a Spider-Man who was just launched from his webs, who literally went through your van to kick you out of it, that's gonna hurt. But I think both personalities are very necessary to each other in this film. This is a very serious situation of people torturing people and locking them up. It's very serious, so a more serious Punisher tone needs to be taken, but at the same time, Peter is going to try to see the good in people, which is something the Punisher could use a little bit of. But from what we have heard, both Spider-Man and the Punisher help Sadie Sink break out of that maximum security prison wherever Sadie Sink is being held at the DODC. And then from there, Sadie Sink's character, again, who I believe to be Jean Grey, and the Punisher want to go after the DODC. And in the original trailer that was leaked online, we actually hear Sadie Sink say, "Stay out of my way, Spider-Man. You're a mess. Stay out of my way or else it won't just be your friends who don't remember you." That again implies that she has psychic powers, and it actually kind of sounds like she might make Peter forget that he is actually Peter, going inside of his head to make him do that. But when she says stay out of my way, she is talking about going and getting the people of the DODC and making them pay. And again, Spider-Man doesn't want to see anybody die, even though people are trying to kill him. One of those persons is Scorpion, who we finally see suit up in that mechanical Scorpion suit. And I gotta say, it's freaking awesome. Let me know what you think about it, but I think that this is peak right here. Now, Scorpion is one of the villains of the movie. I would say one of the more main villains of the movie. There are a lot of villains in this movie, and they actually show us several of them as they are recreating many Spider-Man comic covers. They recreate the Amazing Fantasy cover, which is when Spider-Man debuted. They also recreate the Amazing Spider-Man 134 number 15 with Tarantula, and then you can see in the other one, it has Boomerang. So there will be many villains in this, but some of them will only be in frame for just a split second. They're going to show us a montage in the beginning of the movie that shows Spider-Man over that 4-year gap fighting multiple different villains like Tarantula, like Boomerang, and probably several others. Those aren't going to be main villains of the film, but they will appear for a brief moment. The main villains of the film are going to be Scorpion, who was reportedly broken out of prison by Tombstone, another one of the main villains of the film. Tombstone is going to be played by Marvin Jones III. This is confirmed. He's said to be the leader of a giant mass criminal organization, and he is the one who is in charge of the Hand. The Hand is essentially a mystical ninja organization that first appeared in Daredevil number 174. In fact, many people might remember an adaptation of the Hand in Daredevil season 2 from Netflix. Members of the Hand use powerful magic, and they can literally murder people and bring them back to life as a servant of the Hand. This group, the Hand, is all of the red ninjas that you see on screen and is reportedly going to be controlled by Tombstone. He uses the Hand to help break Scorpion out of prison. So these are really the three main villains right here: Scorpion, Tombstone, and the Hand organization. But there's also been some rumblings that Tombstone might actually be working for Kingpin. Now, we did get Matt Murdock in Spider-Man No Way Home, and the Punisher was recently connected to Kingpin in Daredevil Born Again Season 1. And reportedly, Marvel Studios is planning a big street-level crossover with Spider-Man, the Defenders, Daredevil, and the Punisher, and possibly even more. And if this does happen, it would make sense that Kingpin is really the person in charge of everything that is happening in Spider-Man Brand New Day, leading up to him essentially becoming a big Spider-Man villain, which is something that we have not seen yet. Another one of the villains is going to be the DODC. They're pretty much the big villains to Sadie Sink's character, Jean Grey, and the Punisher. But also, let's not forget the Hulk, because we are going to get a scene where the Punisher, the Hulk, and Spider-Man fight each other, because the Hulk hulks out again, most likely, obviously, due to Banner losing control. And while not a villain, of course, it is going to be a pretty big scene. And last but not least, we have heard a rumor that Spider-Man will turn into Man-Spider and fight the Hulk and the Punisher and Sadie Sink's character Jean Grey, and Jean will reportedly go inside of his mind and calm him down, forcing him to kind of accept that he has to take care of Peter Parker and he just can't be Spider-Man. And I actually think that this might lead us to something really amazing happening. Remember in the beginning, I told you there are two people that might remember who Peter is. Bruce Banner being one of them and Jean Grey being the other. Maybe her psychic abilities allowed her to not be affected by Doctor Strange's spell. Because again, we got the dialogue from the leaked trailer that says, "Stay out of my way or it won't just be your friends who don't remember you." This implies that she knows what happened. And since Spider-Man is going to help her out in Spider-Man Brand New Day, maybe to repay him, she'll use her psychic abilities to make MJ remember who Peter is. I think that would be awesome and something that Peter is going to desperately need by the end of this film, because MJ lives right across the hall from Peter and she has a new boyfriend. This is reportedly Paul, who is played by Iman Esfandi. You might recognize him from the Ahsoka series. He plays the live-action Ezra. We did hear rumors that MJ might be dating a new Harry Osborn in the MCU, but it seems like he is going to play Paul, who MJ actually dates in the comics. It might not really play that much significance other than it's just somebody that MJ ends up dating after she forgets who Peter Parker is. But there is a slight chance he could be playing Harry Osborn. So, like I mentioned in the beginning, a lot is happening in Spider-Man Brand New Day. And that is our breakdown for the Spider-Man Brand New Day trailer. Be sure to let us know what you thought in the comments down below. Please don't forget to like this video and subscribe so you don't miss out on any of the latest Spider-Man and Marvel news. You can also find us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and Snapchat. And as always, thank you all so much for watching. Woof woof.